Hello. I want to introduce myself. My name is Muntaz Khalid, and everyone, family, friends, they call me Roger. And I'm here in beautiful Miami. I've lived between New York, Miami, and today I just wanted to go through and talk a little bit about my past experiences. It spans around 12 years. Part of that, I started my career at Nike headquarters out in Oregon, where I worked at a Nike field band. This was the very beginnings as a software engineer, working with AWS services, specifically very young, using EC2 instances for the field band. I then went off and I worked with the HBO Go as a software engineer. I spent some time also at American Express. One was a fintech company, and the other one was a video platform. At HBO Go, most of my work consists of changing backend systems from Java to Node and leveraging some of AWS services at the time, specifically focusing on EC2, S3 buckets, and really thinking about load balances, especially the time when we had to deal with Game of Thrones, which was one of the most epic time in my career, I would say. From that point, I did the same thing at American Express. It was heavily on the financial institution side. We worked specifically on Amex.com, working on the front end components that was done with React and build out an entire testing infrastructure behind it. I took a break afterwards and I've moved to Boston. I've had the opportunity to be part of the Harvard iLab, which I worked on and co-founded Blockcardia, which was really, we helped with building a financial system that used blockchain. This was called the Hyperledger. And a big part was we would incentivize users. They would breathe into a device. We would tell whether or not they smoked cigarettes because we could track their carbon monoxide level. And a big part of this was thinking about ETL pipeline, leveraging cloud computing, as well as building on Android. And this was a great part of my career. This got me more into the blockchain side. We've been able to leverage some of AWS services specifically for using different consensus mechanism at the time that AWS service, such as your proof of work or your proof of stake, building on top of private as well as public blockchain. This span into working for a couple of companies, specifically ZAM Network, where I was a technical lead there. And I've had a team of 2 to 3, and we built different POCs, which was around interoperability. So we wanted to focus on a chat application that then you can sell tokens from your Ethereum to your Solana network to your Cardano network. From that point, I worked at Penn Entertainment, working heavily on software and thinking about the time analysis series, leveraging some of our AWS services for ETL pipeline, as well as working with, and that was really gradually my start of AI, right? And deep work with AI. So it's been around 3 years that I've been working with artificial intelligence specifically, and I'll talk a little bit about that in more depth. That started with the first company, that Augier.ai, and that came around the problem there. We were talking to a lot of fund managers, and fund managers talked about how long the process took to start a fund, and it cost between $30,000 to $50,000, right? And the reason why you want to start a fund is that you can get investors to invest capital in your fund, making sure that fund is SEC regulated, right? So these superior vehicles, VC, that's a fund structure, right? Whether it's a 506B or 506C. The main objective in being out in Miami, we focused on real estate funds. So after you've done a couple of syndications, you're ready to start a fund, raise capital between 20 and $30 million. And a big part, as the co-founder, what we thought about is, okay, how do we streamline this process? So we leveraged OpenAI released their ChatGPT OpenAI APIs at the time, which is 3.5. So we were using the LLMs back in January of 2023 when it was released. And as a user, you would log into the platform. You would ask you a couple of questions. What is your GP? What is the LP? What is your thesis? And then we would generate a PPM document, which is a private placement memorandum. And that document is a source of truth that investors use, as well as you running the fund. So we were able to cut down the time. Instead of using a lawyer taking 3 to 4 weeks and longer get the process started, we were able to do this in about a week and a half. The architecture there, React, Node, Next.js, Python heavy for the different APIs that we created, Fast API, and we stored all of the legal documents on an S3 bucket, and we leverage cloud computing for scaling our architecture. Um, Day and time now, a, a lot of my work is going into, like, as I'm getting my solution architect cloud certification, I'm also more deeply involved in AI and ML, right? So looking at regression models, being able to think about, okay, how do you actually use different LLMs using RAG architecture that's with a LangChain, being able to use at some capacity SageMaker, and then taking from a testing environment straight to a production environment, right? So my goal and my objective is to continue to think about the use case. Okay, how do we use models? What type of models? There's a whole bunch of different models on Hugging Face that we could leverage. What's the inference? How do we optimize the models? And how do we deploy those models? And in most cases, that's on our different cloud services. And I think, what makes me so great is that I see trends. I'm I'm an innovator. I think about technology very deeply and what's coming. And I think in 2025, especially deeply in AI, is that these agentic workflows are here. Andrew Nag talks about them. We're going to see more asynchronous process, right? Where you can set up an agent, multitude agent, and those agents can run, and they can run on your laptop. And these things are going to be scaling for your everyday, day-to-day task and how we live. And what I'm really, really excited about is NVIDIA with their newer chips. We're going to see a lot of robotics and how they're training robotics from environment, right? So I'm really passionate at what the future holds. That's a little bit about myself. Word. Thank you very much.